What is the difference between enlightenment and salvation? That's a very astute question. And I myself went through conflict. Would Jesus be my main guru or the Buddha? Eh? It seemed like Jesus stood for salvation and the Buddha stood for enlightenment. Are they two different things? Yes, they are in a way. Jesus Christ taught salvation. Although he taught that the presence of God is within you, the mystic, usually through the pathway of the heart, discovered that God being love is innate within you. But generally, what Jesus sort of agrees with Lotus Land Buddhism, the Buddha of infinite compassion, those of you who are Buddhists know the name of it, Avalokiteshvara, all these different representations of Buddha have different names. Anyway, the Pure Land Buddhism is very much like Christianity. It's assumed that the negativity of this world is so severe that the chances of reaching enlightenment are practically zero. It is not therefore a practical goal. If you realize that the consciousness level of mankind was at 190 until late 80s, it means that you're trying to reach the highest state from a severely negative gravity field, you might say. It was not practical. And certainly when you look at the population in which Jesus taught, illiterate, nomadic, believing in gods that were sort of demonic. If you calibrate the gods of the Old Testament, they come out about 70 or 90. Vengeful, angry, vain, egotistical, narcissistic. Primitive gods, the same as the gods of ancient Rome and other primitive societies, sort of demonic. Projections out of the unconscious. That's the God that Freud said had no reality. The gods of the unconscious are the gods of the Old Testament are projections from the unconscious, Freud said. And therefore, then he made the mistake. He said, therefore, God doesn't exist. What he should have said is the negative gods are invalid. And he didn't. He went beyond. He said, therefore, God doesn't exist. Carl Jung, who calibrates it, oh, I got it. Freud calibrated 499. Jung calibrates at 520. Jung went beyond that. He didn't say that because the false gods are false, therefore a true God doesn't exist. On the other hand, Carl Jung affirmed the validity of the spirit world. So Jung crossed over from 499, crossed that great barrier at 500. The purpose of Christ then is the same as Lotus Land Buddhism, that without divine help, the likelihood of getting to heaven is slim. If one needs the powerful energy, the great avatar at 1000 to merely affirm that that is your teacher will carry you through. And we ask this question ourselves. The Buddha teaches the way to enlightenment. Jesus Christ teaches the way to salvation. Let's see if that's correct. That is correct, or is it? That is correct. Is there another question on this subject? Jesus Christ teaches the way to salvation. It is even taught within certain schools of Buddhism and the Hindu that the way which I tend to teach, the way through consciousness itself, is not suitable because of the extent of the negativity of the world. The one-pointedness of mind, we'll get into that maybe this afternoon, how in a meditative state to absolutely transcend the ego, it happens in a snap like that. Suddenly, one is the source out of which all that, it's obvious, but one is the source out of which all of that manifests, but it's not obvious till it happens. The Buddha then taught a way which is suitable for the minority. The Buddha said, once you hear of enlightenment, you will eventually reach it because the spirit will now choose spiritual pathways lifetime after lifetime. The Buddha did not say that by arduous spiritual commitment you're likely to get enlightened in this time, although he did, it did happen as such. The Buddha represents more what I write about them, the realization of the self as the source of all existence. One comes into that awareness at 600 as the presence of an infinite love. In the 700s, which is the level of the sage, one realizes the self as divinity. The self as divinity. And that there is nothing but the self, and that the rest is perceptual impressions projected by the mind.